is dispersal and dormancy, and one of these has commercial applications. So if you're a commercial manufacturer of seeds, you're going to use one of these. So dispersal does what it says in the tin. The picture above is something we're all familiar with, blowing dandelions around, and it is the transfer of the seed or the fruit away from the parents. So why is it that has to happen? Any ideas? Where were we in our bed now? So we've done Jess. Laura, I think it's you. Why do you think plants need to have dispersal? I definitely have my mic on. I have my mic on. Any takers, Alicia? Why might plants have dispersal? Why do they want to get them away from the parent?
With me?
Yeah.
Oh, to create more plants?
But why do they want to get them away from the parent? So what would happen if the seeds germinate next to the parent?
Sorry?
What So what things do plants compete for? So you would have done this when we were second years, third years maybe. So what are all the things plants compete for with each other? You so know the answer to this. So they're going to compete for for light, for water, for space. So straight away, if you can get your babies away from you, you've now reduced the competition for that. There's no overcrowding. You're now taking over the world, new areas in which to grow, and it's going to increase the chances of survival for both parent and offspring. I don't know how many of you have gone to the Killarney National Park. So they used to have beautiful rhododendrons. You'd go through in June time and it was stunning, the colours there. But rhododendrons are really, really invasive, and once they fit into an area, they just take over it. So for about the last, I'd say 15 years, they've started to try and cut them out in the hope that they can get rid of them. So there's big gouges now in the greenery. So in terms of dispersal, they're brilliant at it, but the reality is for us now they're too invasive. So plants will definitely want to do whatever they can so that everybody survives, both parent and offspring. So there's 4 different ways in which to disperse seeds. Any ideas how plants do that?
Wind, animal, what's the other one?
There's 2 others.
Wind, animal. I know some plants do water. I mean, like, you can find coconuts from all the way across the ocean.
Yep, so water is one,
and
then
float.
There's one other one.
I don't know the 4th one.
Anyone else have an idea what the 4th one might be? If you grow cucumbers in your garden, that you might see them. Alrighty, so we'll have a look. So the 4 are the wind, water, animal, and they actually do self-dispersal. So cucumber plants actually explode. So we'll write a real simple sentence for each method as we go through them. The video unfortunately won't play through a tablet. So
Yes, can you go back for like 3 seconds?
To the 4 methods.
Reasons. Sorry.
It's okay. So while you're waiting, you can be thinking, if you're going to do wind dispersal, what's your characteristic of your seeds, or how is it, what do they have to be, or characteristics do they have to have?
They'd have to be light.
They definitely have to be light. because they're going to be carrying the wind. So what type of structures do you know of that give hours of fun to children when they pick them up?
Dandelions.
Yeah, so dandelions, they have their little parachute. Can you think of another one?
Helicopters?
Yeah, the helicopters. So they're always good fun. So your fruit will either have wings or it'll have some type of parachute. And the whole point is to get the seed as far away as possible. So hours of fun with sycamore helicopters. So if you are doing water dispersal, then what do you need to be?
Hint.
Say it again.
Hint.
I don't understand.
Buoyant, like it can float.
Oh, buoyant. Sorry, yes. You have to be buoyant, so you have to be very light. You've got to be filled with air so that you can float. Okay, I can only see 5 heads at the moment, but are those heads? So I can see Tyga, Alicia, Laura, Mark, Conke. You all good to move? Yeah. Okay, so in terms of water then, you just have to be light and air filled and that you can float. So as Peter said, coconuts will find their way to new places. So 2 ways animal dispersion works if you're a fruit. Any ideas of how that one works?
They eat them in droppings.
So they're going to poop them out somewhere is one. What's the second one?
They stick to the animal.
Yeah, they stick to the animal. They even stick to us if you walk through enough fields.
Oh, birds.
Yeah, so burdock, goosegrass. They stick to your clothes, they stick to your animal fur, and then they get dropped somewhere else. So my 5 heads, Tig, you're good to move. Thank you so much. Okay, so animal, it's either sticky fruit with hooks or it is edible fruit, and they are passed through the digestive system. And that brings us then to the last one, self-dispersal. So this is when the fruit actually explodes to flick your seeds away. So as I say, you can see it with some cucumbers will do it, some peas and some beans.
Pumpkins do it as well, but they're really bad when that happens.
I've grown pumpkins in the past, but I've never let them go that long.
Yeah, I saw a video. I'm not sure if it was like some sort of species or something, but I saw a video where essentially the pumpkin, it was a massive pumpkin, and it was just left there to grow, and it like actually exploded. Like it had a noise when it exploded.
Are you sure some American kid didn't put something in there and then YouTube it?
There wasn't smoke. It just
Went.
blew open.
But you could do it with air, compressed air. So the last
I
one.
don't know. I just saw it like that.
Cool. Not if it hits you and you're covered in pumpkin goo, but... So when we were all in primary school and we did dormancy in terms of volcanoes, so it's not actively churning out lava, what do you think dormancy means in terms of a seed? Any takers?
It's not germinating.
So it's germinating is when you've put it in the ground, but you can have a seed that isn't in the ground and it can be dormant. So what is it doing? It's not going to germinate, but what is happening within the seed, do you think? So think about what are the parts in a seed.
It's using up its food stores.
Nope.
I don't know.
Any other takers? No takers? Alright, so dormancy is this resting period when your seed isn't actively growing, so the embryo isn't growing, there's no growth, there's no metabolism. It literally has stopped, it's in stasis. And there are a number of reasons why this can happen. So the cell knows that conditions aren't right to germinate, so they will have growth inhibitors that will stop growth. So if it was too dry, too warm, too something, these growth inhibitors kick in and therefore the seed can't germinate until there is water or the right conditions. If the embryo can't actually get out of the cell, then it's going to go into dormancy until the time is right. And if there was no oxygen present, and that can happen if there's too much light or you need to have light. So in winter, when the daylight hours are shorter, there might not be growth regulator, and as you get towards spring and it's suddenly getting warmer, you now suddenly get growth regulator and dormancy stops. So the underlined part would be the parts that you would see in a marking scheme, or that your examiner would be looking for. So of the two, dispersal and dormancy, which one is suited for commercial growers, horticulturalists, farmers? Which one do you think they can play with and decide?
Dormancy?
Yeah, it's going to be dormancy. What do you think is the advantage to a seed of having a period of dormancy in terms of its growth?
It doesn't waste its food stores until it needs to germinate.
Yeah, absolutely. So, think about seasons. You kind of make your seed at the end of the season. Then you're going into winter. It's not going to be ideal. So if you go dormant, you're not going to be destroyed by frost. So this is like what winter barley, you have to make sure, isn't it, that it's at the 5-leaf stage before your frosts come, and that'll guarantee it'll survive. But if you put it in too late or the frosts come too early, then you've lost that crop. So is it okay, Alicia, are you happy, Conke? Can I move forward? You can say no, yes. Okay. So in terms of our advantages, you don't have to cope with the harsh winter conditions. Your embryo will have time to develop, and it also allows time for dispersal, because the embryo doesn't need to grow. And so over here for the applications, what that kind of means is how a farmer or a commercial grower could actually use dormancy to suit it. So some seeds you might have to put in a fridge before they germinate, so you can decide when they grow, essentially. Other seeds you can put in water. So when we finally get back to school and we do the practicals with this, I will have to pre-soak the seeds to break dormancy in them. And other things that you can do is you can scrape the seed coat or expose the seed to light or dark depending on what the seed is. So these are ways.
Yes, that kind of dormancy thing, is that how they like keep like the doomsday vault things? You know, those kind of places where they keep like massive seed stores.
The vault,
how they
wherever.
keep them.
Yeah. The conditions are made such that they will not break. They're all dormant seeds. So the only issue that they can have is attacked by fungal growth, mycotoxins and weird and wonderful things that would eat those seeds. So for those of you that don't know, there is a seed bank, and it contains supposedly the vast majority of seeds for crops, trees, flowers, such that if something ever was to happen, there would be a store of them kept so that we could replant the earth or somewhere else if needed.
There are also smaller ones all over the world for different specific types of plants. I know there's like one, I think, in like some place that's like just potatoes.
Okay.
And then there's places that are for like fruiting trees and stuff.
There you go. So the last thing I'm going to do is page 187. Let's see how far we go. So we then only have a page and a half tomorrow and a little tiny play. And then Monday we will have a look at the experiments, and we will, let me have a look at my list. Yeah, and then we just have to finish the asexual reproduction part. Okay, I'm going to change my share. So this is page 187. It depends on how you were taught junior cycle science. Remember you did your germination experiment? Did you have a shortcut way of remembering the 3 conditions for germination? I use WOW. Some people use WOT, W-O-T.
Water, oxygen, warmth.
That's my version of it, but you may have had a shortcut for it. So at senior cycle now, you have to be able to explain what's the role of water in germination, what's the role of oxygen in germination, and what's the role of warmth in terms of a germinating seed. So dormancy is a period where there is no growth and no metabolism, and germination is the regrowth after a period of dormancy, and only if conditions are correct. So from our picture of our seed, this is the plumule, the shoot now, and this is the radicle. So this, if once it's above ground, it's a shoot. So we'll just draw the line that says this is plumule and that's your radicle, and then your radicle will either become a tap or fibers depending on what's going on. So I've taken my seed, I've planted it in the ground. Water is really the first thing that's needed by the seed. So any idea what water might do once it gets into your seed? Any takers?
Allows for respiration.
So we're going to get there eventually, but we're not quite there yet.
Breaks down the test.
So we've broken down the test and we've gotten in. So your water, once it gets in, is going to activate your enzymes, and it's going to allow digestion to happen because those enzymes are now active. And water will also transport these digested products because they've got to get to your embryo. So if this is my seed, this is my embryo over here, and we'll draw a picture in a minute and label it up. But the water will usually, the little micropile, the little hole, the water will come in and it'll activate going that way. So the first thing it does is gets the enzymes up and running for digestion, and then gets the digested products to your embryo. So that's the water. What's the role then of oxygen in all this? So what does oxygen do for us?
So they can breathe.
So it's not quite breathe, but what's the thing that we use oxygen for? Respiration. So similarly here. So now I've got my digested food products. So you probably have some glucose in there. And now I have oxygen for respiration. So now my embryo can really start growing. And obviously the oxygen has to be in your soil. So there's no stomata or lenticels or anything to get the oxygen in. So it has to be in your soil. And the last thing, and this is the question, any question that they ask, the SEC ask you about temperature, what suitable temperature is for what?
Your enzymes, so
Yep.
that you don't get dehydrated.
Yeah, so it is going to be for your enzymes. Thank you, Hannah. So you're getting your maximum enzyme activity. I think that's going to end there. So I'm going to just change my screen in a minute. So you let me know when you're good for me to change my screen. So I can see Conke, Mark, Laura, Alicia, Millie. Happy? As happy as you can be. Okay, so underneath we have things for events and germination, and then we have a little space for a diagram. So the two main events are going to be digestion of cotyledon or endosperm if you have them, and it is going to be respiration, which makes ATP for mitosis. So they are your two main events that are going to occur in germination. So in terms of our diagram, we are going to draw a seed like so. We are going to draw our little embryo, and we will give it a little plumule and a radicle. So just in terms of our names and the parts, we have a testa, we have a cotyledon, we have an embryo, which is made of the plumule is the little hook part, and our radical is the bit that's underneath. So we did that when we did Form 4, Form 5 stuff. So I'm just going to put this little X here. So this little X here is what was the micropyle. So that was the way into the ovule when we did the girl bits. And this is going to be step 1. So it goes in the water, oxygen, warmth. It is those things. So the first thing that has to happen is water is absorbed through the micropyle. So excuse me for my not proper English. So that activates the enzymes. Then after that, once the enzymes are activated, we have number 2. And in number 2, we have the food reserves are digested. By our enzymes and travel towards the embryo. So you have more room than I have on my screen. So, oh, I didn't want to do that. Apologies. Repair that. So are digested by enzymes. Can you remember when we did digestion, what we said were the digestion products? So all the things that go into our blood. Can we remember some examples? Any takers? What are our products of digestion? Oh, we're gone a step too far. So glucose and amino acids. So these will be used to make cell walls and ATP. We'll also have fats and glucose that will be used in respiration. And then our last little bit is number 3, and we will end here. So for number 3, you are getting your radical emerges first. So it puts down its root first because it needs to get the water, and the plumule will emerge next. Okay, and your seed leaves start to form. Now, so this part I'm going to remove the picture of my seed, if that's okay. Or at least I'm going to change the picture of my seed.
Miss, what's that word there when it has seed leaves?
Form.
Okay.
So the seed leaves form. So I will draw you the little picture of the seed just so you can have an idea. So what happens is...
Is that the part that says events in germination cease when radical emerges first?
That is... No, events in germination cease That's not that part. So this is picture 3. For those of you that are interested. So your radicle emerges first. And then that's going to be followed by the plumule comes next. So it really needs to get water before, and it will have its seed leaves will be down here. So they will then form. And the last bit I'm going to get rid of up here for you. I want you to decide to go now. Sometimes it does this. It decides it doesn't want to erase. So then there's just one sentence left. That says events in germination cease when your other plant leaves develop and photosynthesis can start. And that is all we're going to do today. So on whatever day we saw you last, on Monday I believe it was, so I haven't started marking your papers yet. I just have to finish my chemists, so I'll start on you tonight. There is a page in class notebook that has a number of different questions. It has the jigsaw joy that is on page 184, 185 for you to now go through and have a look. So if you can have those in there for tomorrow, I'll start marking them in my freeze. Is there any weird and wonderful questions that you might have?
Do you know, just on the OneNote, when does that have to be due for? I think there's pollination questions.
Yeah, so there's a whole load of questions. I gave all of the questions are in the class notebook page. So ideally, I would like them at midnight tonight. But if you get in touch with me and say, Miss, I can't for whatever reason, then that would be fine. But as soon as you can do them would be great.
Yeah, that's great.
Thanks, Andrew.